Have you ever felt manipulated by someone who seems to know exactly how to control you? What if you could flip the script, keeping them guessing about your next move? In today's video, we're diving into a powerful strategy: unpredictability. Imagine having the power to act in such a way that no one can manipulate or control you. Want to know how? Stick with me, because I'm going to show you how to use surprise to your advantage. This video will teach you how to apply Machiavellian principles to become unpredictable in your interactions. We'll explore how to create an aura of uncertainty that weakens any attempt at manipulation. And the best part, you'll do it without losing control of your own life. Are you ready to take control of your relationships and stop being an easy target for manipulators? If you've ever felt trapped in psychological games or manipulated by people around you, then this video is for you. You'll learn tactics that you can implement right away to become someone who simply cannot be read. Let's get into it. Unpredictability. It sounds simple, but in reality, it's one of the most powerful tools you can wield in your life to avoid being manipulated. Manipulators thrive on predictability. They study your patterns, your reactions, and create games where you always seem to lose. But what if you could flip that script? What if your next move was so hard to anticipate that no one could control you? The key to that is unpredictability. When you act unpredictably, you break that cycle of control. No one knows how you're going to react. That, in itself, creates a field of uncertainty that disarms most manipulators. They start to feel hesitant, unsure. They begin to doubt themselves, and when they doubt themselves, they lose the power to control you. This is exactly what you want: to disrupt their power, to show that you are the one who holds the upper hand. Think about it. How often do manipulators succeed because they know exactly what to expect from you? They've mapped out your reactions, studied your weaknesses, and designed situations to make you fall into their traps. But imagine if you never gave them that satisfaction. You kept them guessing, making them work harder, think more, and waste their energy on figuring you out. In that constant state of uncertainty, they start to lose control. It's not just about being erratic or chaotic. It's about being smart with your unpredictability. A well-timed change in your behavior, a slight shift in your usual responses, can completely throw off someone who's trying to manipulate you. It forces them to question their strategy, to rethink their approach. And that's exactly where your power lies. You don't need to react the same way every time. You can surprise them, making their calculated moves less effective. The beauty of unpredictability is that it puts you in the driver's seat. You're no longer the puppet in someone else's game. You're the one setting the pace, and they're the ones scrambling to keep up. It's like a chess match where every move you make forces your opponent to constantly reevaluate their strategy. And in this game, you're always one step ahead. So, next time you find yourself in a situation where someone is trying to manipulate you, ask yourself, what would happen if I threw them off track? What if I didn't give them what they expected? In the world of manipulation, unpredictability isn't just an advantage, it's your best defense. But this is only the beginning. To truly master this power, you need to understand how to create chaos in the minds of those who seek to control you. Let's dive into that next. Ever noticed how some people have the ability to get inside your head, twisting your thoughts, making you second-guess everything you do? What if you could flip the script and turn that confusion into your weapon? This is exactly what Machiavelli understood: the ability to create chaos in your adversary's mind. By planting seeds of doubt, by making them unsure of their next move, You put them at your mercy. Let them struggle to understand you. Let them question their own thoughts. And watch how they lose control. When Machiavelli talked about power, he didn't speak of brute force. He spoke of strategy, of controlling the game by creating uncertainty in others. By making them question their own judgments, you manipulate their perception of reality. How often do manipulators win? Because they control what you believe to be true. How often do they succeed? Because they create a predictable, safe environment for themselves while keeping you in a mental cage. Imagine reversing that. Imagine being the one who forces them to question every move they make. Think about the times you've been manipulated. How many of those times did you feel trapped in a situation where you couldn't tell if your instincts were guiding you or if someone else was pulling the strings? Manipulators thrive on this confusion. They rely on your predictability to get ahead, to corner you into a box of your own making. But if you could make them doubt everything, make them rethink their assumptions, would they still have that control? Could they maintain that grip if they were constantly questioning whether their next move would backfire? This is where Machiavelli's genius lies. It's not enough to just keep people guessing. It's about making them feel lost in the process. When you throw a wrench in their certainty, you begin to reshape their perception of power. By keeping them in a constant state of disarray, you're not just avoiding manipulation, you're positioning yourself as the one who calls the shots. It's about planting the seed of uncertainty so deep in their minds that they begin to doubt even their own motivations. How can you apply this in your daily life? Simple. Disrupt their assumptions. Do they expect a quick response? Don't give them one. Do they think they've figured you out? Change course. By forcing them to rethink everything they think they know about you, you're turning their weapon of control into a flaw. Imagine a chess match where the opponent is so focused on analyzing your next move, they can't even keep up with the game. That's what chaos in their minds looks like. Loss of focus, loss of control. Machiavelli knew the secret. Chaos isn't something you need to create with loud actions or dramatic moves. It's something you do with subtlety. By subtly shifting the landscape of their thoughts, you leave them constantly on edge, scrambling for clarity. And the best part, you're the one holding the map. In the next step, we'll dive deeper into how you can use timing and reaction to further destabilize the manipulators in your life. Do you ever feel like your opponents always expect your next move? What if you could take control by throwing them completely off track with just one unexpected reaction? The element of surprise is one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. It's not just about catching someone off guard. It's about forcing them to lose their mental grip. It's in those moments of surprise that real control is taken. You have the power to dictate how the situation unfolds, and it all begins with timing. But timing is a skill, an art form really. It's not enough to react at random. You must study the situation and know the precise moment to act. When you keep people guessing about what you'll do next, you take them out of their comfort zone. They no longer have the luxury of relying on their own predictability. Have you ever noticed how manipulative people thrive in situations where they can almost predict your every reaction? They use that pattern against you. But imagine if they could never guess your next move. Imagine the power you'd hold in that uncertainty. Let's take a real-life example. Picture a conversation where you're being cornered. Someone's pushing you to make a decision, expecting a certain answer. They've studied you. They know your usual reactions. But what happens if, instead of offering them what they expect, you respond with something entirely unpredictable? A simple pause, a change of expression, a nonchalant comment. It might be enough to throw them into confusion. They were prepared for your predictable reaction, but instead, you've set a new course. In the world of strategy, timing and reaction are everything. Knowing when to act is far more valuable than acting on impulse. You can keep manipulators at bay simply by controlling the flow of a situation. The longer you hold off, the more power you gain. You disrupt their game plan by making them realize they can't rely on their own sense of control. If they expect you to panic, stay calm. If they expect you to be angry, remain serene. Each reaction is a small victory, because you've denied them the satisfaction of knowing what you'll do next. It's easy to overlook how often our reactions define how others perceive us. How many times have you blurted out a response out of reflex, only to regret it later when you see the manipulator's grin? The key here is knowing when to delay, when to pause and make them sweat. Timing gives you the upper hand in any battle. It doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes, a mere glance can completely alter the dynamic of the situation. By mastering the element of surprise, you not only disrupt your opponent's expectations, but also disarm their ability to control you. The more you surprise them, the more you chip away at their confidence. You're not playing their game anymore, you're setting the rules. In the next segment, we'll explore how emotional detachment can add another layer of unpredictability to your strategy, keeping them even further off balance. What if the key to being unpredictable is not about what you do, but about what you don't do? Emotional detachment might seem counterintuitive in a world that values emotional connection, but it's one of the most powerful tools for keeping manipulators on edge. When you detach yourself emotionally from a situation, you stop reacting in ways that others expect. You don't give them the satisfaction of seeing your emotions. This is where your unpredictability starts. Manipulators thrive on emotional responses. They know how to push your buttons, how to elicit a reaction that's in their favor. But what happens when you refuse to give them that power? When you don't allow your emotions to be the puppets they pull, the whole game changes. Without emotional reactions, they are left guessing, wondering why you're not upset, why you're not angry, why you're not engaging in the way they're used to. This confusion creates a space where you regain control. Consider a moment when someone tried to provoke you. Maybe they tried to upset you or make you feel guilty. How did you respond? Did you react emotionally as they expected? Or did you remain calm, indifferent? Emotional detachment isn't about shutting off your feelings entirely. It's about choosing not to let your emotions control the situation. The more you practice this, the more unpredictable you become to those who try to manipulate you. They can't control you if they can't predict how you'll feel. Emotional detachment works because it strips manipulators of their most powerful weapon, your emotional vulnerability. It's easy to manipulate someone when you can read their emotional state and exploit it. But when you become emotionally neutral, you become a wild card. The more unpredictable your emotional reactions, the less power others have over you. You keep them constantly in a state of uncertainty, never quite sure what you'll do next. But how do you actually start practicing this detachment? It's not about becoming a robot. It's about recognizing the situations that trigger you and deciding to stay calm, composed, and unaffected. For example, when someone insults you or tries to guilt trip you, instead of reacting immediately with anger or frustration, take a moment. Breathe. Respond with neutrality, with calmness, or even with silence. The power is in your ability to hold your emotions back and let the situation unfold without your interference. The real strength of emotional detachment is that it doesn't just protect you, it also weakens your manipulator. Without your emotional responses, they lose their leverage. They may even begin to question their own methods, unsure of why their usual tricks aren't working. Emotional detachment is more than just a defense. It's an offensive weapon. It's a way to stay ahead in the mental game, forcing others to adapt to you instead of the other way around. And once they realize they can't predict your next move, they lose the upper hand entirely. Have you ever noticed how people who think they know everything tend to overestimate their control over others? But what if the key to gaining power is to play the fool? By pretending to be less informed or disinterested, you create confusion, putting others in a position where they overestimate their own control. This Machiavellian technique of feigning ignorance is not about being truly uninformed. It's about manipulating others into revealing their strategies and intentions. When you pretend to know less, you lower others' guard. The manipulator, confident in their ability to deceive or control, assumes that you're unaware of their moves. But here's the twist. In their arrogance, they begin to drop their defenses, thinking they've won, while you're silently gathering all the information you need. In the act of playing dumb, you position yourself as a wild card, someone they think they can easily predict, but someone who's actually gaining the upper hand by watching them trip over their own arrogance. Why do we underestimate the power of acting less informed? In a world where knowledge is power, playing dumb feels like the last thing we should do. But what if it's exactly the tool you need to wield control in an unpredictable way? When you act clueless, you put the manipulator in the driver's seat, only to later reveal that you've been orchestrating the game from the shadows. They'll think they've manipulated you, when in fact, you've manipulated them. The beauty of this tactic lies in its simplicity. The less you reveal about your true knowledge and intentions, the more power you hold. By pretending to be ignorant, you make others believe that they can push you around, only for them to realize too late that they've exposed their own weaknesses. This is where the art of manipulation flips. It's not about what you know, but about what they think you don't know. Every piece of information you gain, unnoticed by them, increases your leverage and keeps them guessing. But how do you strike the right balance? If you play dumb too often, you risk being written off entirely. If you do it at the wrong time, you could end up losing credibility. The key is subtlety. You need to act ignorant just enough to throw the manipulator off balance without losing your own sense of authority. In some situations, you'll downplay your knowledge. In others, you'll exaggerate your ignorance just to confuse them into revealing their hand. This strategy isn't about deception in a negative sense. It's about positioning yourself in a way that keeps others unsure of how to react to you. When you act less informed, the manipulator's confidence becomes their own downfall. They think they have you figured out, but they never see the real game you're playing. And in the end, it's this unpredictability, the fact that they never know what you truly know, that makes you the one in control. What happens when people can't figure you out? What happens when they expect one thing, but you give them something completely different? This is where the power of changing your patterns comes into play. Imagine if every time someone tried to predict your next move, they were left second-guessing themselves. In a world where predictability is a weakness, the ability to shift your behavior constantly forces others into a state of confusion and insecurity. Are you ready to make them wonder what you'll do next? Manipulators thrive on patterns. They rely on your habits, your reactions, your moods. They want to know what to expect from you, so they can exploit your weaknesses. But when you switch things up regularly, when your behavior is unpredictable, they lose their footing. The foundation of their manipulation crumbles. They no longer have the certainty they need to control you. Suddenly, you flip the script, and they're the ones in the dark, unsure of how to proceed. Changing your patterns doesn't mean you have to be erratic or unpredictable just for the sake of it. It's about strategically altering your responses in ways that disrupt the manipulator's understanding of who you are. One moment, you're calm and collected. The next, you're assertive and direct. This inconsistency is like a mental maze for those trying to control you. They can't anticipate your next move, because they never know which version of you they'll encounter. And that, in itself, is your power. The key to this strategy is subtlety. You don't need to make drastic changes every day, but introducing small variations, whether it's in your tone, your body language, or your emotional response, keeps the manipulator guessing. For example, if you typically agree with everything, change it up. Say no when you'd normally say yes. If you're usually passive, show some aggression. These shifts disrupt expectations and create a psychological environment where the manipulator is forced to reevaluate their approach. But why do we fail to change our patterns? Is it because we're afraid of being unpredictable, of stepping out of the comfort zone we've created for ourselves? Or is it because we fear the discomfort of uncertainty? If we never challenge our own behavior, we allow others to predict us, to control us. This is where true power lies, in the discomfort of unpredictability. Are you willing to embrace it, or will you continue to be an easy target for manipulation? At the end of the day, your unpredictability is a weapon. Every time you alter your behavior, you remind the manipulator that they cannot control you. And in this mental game, being unpredictable is your defense, your offense, and your ultimate advantage. They will never be able to move against you if they can't figure out which direction you're going next. Keep them guessing, and keep yourself in control. What if I told you that silence could be your most powerful weapon? Not saying a word, not giving anything away, yet controlling everything. In a world full of noise, where everyone is eager to speak and share their thoughts, the quiet one becomes the most mysterious. Think about it. When was the last time someone didn't know what you were thinking? When did you leave them in that agonizing state of uncertainty, unable to predict your next move? This is the power of silence. Silence is the ultimate form of unpredictability. Imagine you're in a conversation, and instead of reacting immediately or offering your opinion, you simply remain silent. What happens? The manipulator, the person trying to control the narrative, becomes unsettled. They start questioning themselves. Did they say something wrong? Are you hiding something? Are you actually not interested in what they're saying? This ambiguity rattles their confidence and forces them to wonder about you. The more they wonder, the less control they have. It's not just about staying quiet. It's about using that silence strategically. When you refuse to speak, you disarm the manipulator in a way that words can't. Words create expectations, and once those expectations are in place, manipulation becomes easier. But silence? Silence is open-ended, it holds infinite possibilities, and it invites speculation. When you choose silence over response, you place them in a psychological bind where they're forced to fill the void with their own assumptions. Now let's talk about how silence works on a deeper level. When you refuse to engage, you're making a statement, one that says you don't need to prove anything, you don't need to share, and you don't need to reveal. This causes disorientation. Manipulators thrive on engagement because it allows them to steer you, guide your reactions, and ultimately control the situation. But when you break the pattern and hold your tongue, the manipulation tactic falls apart. They're forced into a passive role, and suddenly the tables have turned. Why does silence have this effect? It's psychological. Our brains are wired to seek answers. When we don't get them, we start to fill the gaps with uncertainty, fear, and doubt. The manipulator wants to feel in control, but silence leaves them powerless. They can't predict your intentions or read your next move, and that makes them anxious. The question then becomes, can you handle the discomfort of silence long enough to completely disarm your adversary? Ultimately, silence isn't just a lack of sound. It's a deliberate and potent form of communication. In moments of tension, where words may escalate things, silence does the opposite. It disrupts, confuses, and throws off any attempt at control. When you use silence in your interactions, you change the rules of the game. And those who think they can control you, they'll soon realize that the one who says nothing holds the most power. What if I told you that showing weakness could actually make you stronger? Feigning vulnerability, pretending to be someone you're not, isn't about being a victim. It's about controlling the narrative. Think about it. How often do you see someone's guard drop when they appear weak? That's the paradox of vulnerability. By letting the world see a softer side, you can slip under the radar and confuse your would-be manipulators. They expect weakness to be exploited, but they never see it coming when you turn it into your advantage. When we think of weakness, we tend to see it as something to avoid. But in the world of manipulation, it's often the weapon that keeps adversaries from recognizing your true strength. Imagine someone tries to gain control over you, to steer your actions, to manipulate you into doing their bidding. The moment you act less competent, less involved, and more dependent, they start to believe they've got you figured out. What they don't know is that you've tricked them into underestimating you. And when they do that, they've already lost. Why does this tactic work so effectively? Manipulators feed off your strength. They want to see where you're confident, where you're powerful, and where they can exploit those areas. But when you fake weakness, you create a blind spot. You force them to misjudge you, leading them into a dangerous assumption that they can control you with ease. They don't see the reality that beneath the surface, you are still the one pulling the strings. When they believe you're an open book, they forget to read between the lines. The psychology here is simple. People are less likely to manipulate someone they perceive as incapable. They think they can push you around, corner you into decisions, and make you play their game. But when you play the role of someone who can't stand up for themselves or isn't sharp enough, they lower their guard. That's when you strike. You know the game, you know the stakes, and you've prepared for it in silence. By pretending to be weaker than you truly are, you've already shifted the balance of power. But there's a critical element in this strategy: control. The moment you pretend to be vulnerable, you still have to remain in control of how others perceive you. It's one thing to play weak. It's another to keep it subtle enough that others believe it without a doubt. If you fake it too overtly, the manipulation may backfire. The goal isn't to appear helpless, but to appear like someone no one wants to target because they assume you're too much of a liability. Let them think they can exploit you until they find out they've been outplayed. In the end, feigning weakness isn't about fooling others. It's about fooling them into believing they have an upper hand. And when they think they do, they let down their defenses. What they don't realize is that in their eyes, you've already won. This strategic act of vulnerability allows you to control the narrative without even saying a word. By pretending to be something you're not, you trap your adversaries in a game of their own making, and they'll never know what hit them. What if the key to power didn't lie in your physical strength or your ability to make bold moves, but in your ability to make others constantly question themselves? Welcome to the world of psychological warfare, where unpredictability is your greatest weapon. In this arena, you don't need to fight with fists or words, you fight with your mind. And by keeping others perpetually uncertain, you make them your prey without them even realizing it. Can you feel the power of that? Think about it. How often do we act based on what we think others expect? What if we could strip that away, refusing to be predictable, and instead make others feel like they're always a step behind? This is where psychological warfare takes root. By remaining unpredictable, you force your adversaries into a game they can't win. The more uncertain you are, the less they know how to react. And the less they know, the more control you have over the situation. You've become the master of chaos, and they're left trying to figure out what comes next. The most dangerous part? This kind of unpredictability doesn't have to be obvious. It's subtle. It's the act of suddenly changing your tone, your behavior, or your approach without warning. One moment you're calm and composed, the next, you've shifted to something completely different. The unpredictability becomes a psychological trap, one that traps the manipulator in a state of constant hesitation. Should they act? Should they wait? They never know for sure, and that's your advantage. Unpredictability in this context doesn't require grand gestures. It's the subtle art of messing with people's expectations. Every time they think they've figured you out, you throw them a curveball. They start second-guessing their every move, analyzing you from angles they never thought of before. What happens when a manipulator begins questioning their own strategy? They lose their edge. They become the ones who are vulnerable. They start to doubt themselves, and that's when the psychological game becomes yours to win. This is where the real power lies. Psychological warfare through unpredictability isn't just about throwing off your enemies. It's about breaking their mental foundation. It's about pushing them into a state where every decision is clouded by uncertainty, and that confusion becomes their biggest weakness. What if the biggest weapon you wield is the fact that your opponent doesn't know how to read you? That's not just an advantage, it's a form of dominance. By the time they realize they've been ensnared in this web of doubt, it's too late. The uncertainty you've planted in their minds has already undermined their ability to manipulate you. And what's worse, the longer they play this game with you, the more they begin to lose control, not just over the situation, but over their own thoughts. In this game of psychological warfare, unpredictability isn't just a tactic, it's your weapon of mass confusion, and it keeps your enemies in a state of perpetual disarray. What if the true strength in life lies not in how much we know, but in how little we reveal? The power of unpredictability doesn't just protect you, it elevates you. It transforms you from a pawn in someone else's game into the one pulling the strings. When you embrace unpredictability, you gain the ability to control the flow of events, to turn the tables before anyone even realizes the game has changed. Are you ready to stop being a victim of manipulation and start being the one who controls the narrative? Imagine the manipulator who spent years carefully crafting their plans, only to have them undone by your unpredictability. Every time they think they have you figured out, you surprise them. Your silence disorients them. Your shifting patterns confuse them. Your feigned weakness makes them think they've found a flaw, only for them to realize it's a trap. It's a chess match, and you've learned how to be 3 steps ahead while they're still trying to catch up. How many times have you let someone else take control? How many times have you let yourself be easily predicted? Now imagine the opposite. Machiavelli knew that control is achieved not by brute force, but by manipulation of the mind. To dominate, you must first understand the deepest fears, desires, and expectations of those around you, and then be utterly unpredictable. The chaos you create in others' minds becomes their downfall. They waste energy trying to anticipate your next move, all the while you're already orchestrating your victory. This psychological manipulation isn't about cruelty, it's about strategy. And when done right, it's a masterpiece of mental warfare. But let's not sugarcoat it. Mastering unpredictability isn't easy. It requires discipline, self-awareness, and the ability to look at the world with a mind that's constantly recalculating. It's not about being erratic for the sake of it. It's about being deliberately, strategically unpredictable. It's about knowing when to act and when to hold back, when to speak and when to remain silent. Can you be that person who controls the environment, not through force or persuasion, but through calculated unpredictability? So let me ask you, are you ready to take control of your own story? Are you willing to become the unpredictable force in your own life, the one who keeps the manipulators on their toes? The moment you master this, your life will shift in ways you can't even imagine. You'll no longer be at the mercy of others' expectations or manipulations. Instead, you'll be the one setting the terms, deciding the game, and keeping others guessing. Will you be the one who dictates your fate, or the one who lets others do it for you? In the end, unpredictability is not just a defense, it's your path to power. It's the key to breaking free from the chains of manipulation, to reclaiming your independence, and to becoming a force that no one can control. Embrace it, master it, and watch as the world becomes yours to navigate, untouchable and unpredictable. If you're ready to stop being predictable, to take control of your life, and to master the art of unpredictability, then don't wait, subscribe now. Hit the bell icon to get notified every time we drop new strategies that will empower you, confuse your enemies, and transform your mindset. Join the journey and start mastering the game. It's time to stop playing by their rules and start making your own. Will you take the first step?